Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
Hello.
Hello.
I don't know about where you are. It's a beautiful sunny day here.
Yes.
Albeit cold. There was frost this morning on our deck.
Let
but
the
I-
sunshine in. Yay.
Yes, I think that pattern is being broken now, as of today. We are going to talk about one of my favorite acupressure points, acupuncture points. If I had to pick all of the points over 35 years that I've taught, this would be the number one point I've taught the most clinically to patients. Because it's fast acting, that's what I love about it. A lot of points you have to keep working it. This one, I've literally used it and had immediate results in the clinic, and I've taught it to people who have said the same thing. It's called Pericardium 6. There are 9 points in the pericardium meridian. This is the 6th point of the 9 points. The pericardium in Western physiology is the heart protector. It's like this membranous covering around the heart that has a big job of keeping the heart safe, so to speak. This point does the same thing. It's great for a lot of cardiac issues, but the main thing that it's been used for and known for is its help with nausea, vomiting, hiccups, those type of diaphragm or digestive issues, even though it's a pericardium point. And we're going to go over the location soon. The reason I said it's one of my favorite points, I've literally had friends in the past who had such bad nausea from stomach flu, they were vomiting, and I've literally pressed on this point and stopped their vomiting. That's how great it is. So long ago, so we're talking about early 60s, the Russian cosmonauts, when they went up into space, literally they did their version of duct tape with a ball bearing on this, pressing on this point, because it's so good for motion sickness. So you can, which ties into the nausea and vomiting as well. Probably the thing I've treated the most or taught the most with this is morning sickness. It's a great point for women with morning sickness.
I think it's also the point that's the C-bands. When
Right.
you go on cruises and they put the band on your wrist, that's the pericardium 6
Right.
point. And there's also something called nausea bands that are used for pregnant women
Correct.
that are having morning sickness. And I think one word of advice about those bands, if you've used them, some people will say they don't work. And what we found is either the location was off or they didn't have the band on tight enough. So.
My point with those bands, and I've said this to 1,000 patients, I think,
Yeah.
is that you have to, it constricts a little bit. There's a lot of anatomy in this area of the body, a lot of vessels, the radial artery, etc. And to tighten that down enough for it to be effective, I think you occlude, you're not going to cause any damage or anything, but it just does, to get it firm enough and tight enough so it works, I think you have other issues. That's why I was saying I love this point, and Laura's right. It's so funny when I've taught these people, they go, oh yeah, that's the one I used when I was on a cruise. Oh yeah, that's the one I used when I was on a plane, whatever it may be. So it's one of the best points for motion sickness. Actually, JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association, I think in November 2000, had a whole issue on alternative or complementary medicine, and this had one of the largest articles. They said that 75% of the time this point is pressed, it reduces or eliminates morning sickness. And for any woman who has ever had morning sickness, of course, I cannot relate to that, knows how beneficial this point is. One of my favorite stories, I had a patient who was pregnant and had a lot of morning sickness and came in with her mother, her adult mother. She's an adult, I should say. Of course, the mother's an adult. And I was treating her, and she had no appetite. The nausea was so bad, she just didn't feel like eating anything. And so I treated her. In this instance, I did acupuncture on her and taught her the acupressure point as well. She got up. Now, she hadn't wanted to eat in 3 or 4 days, and she turned to her mother in the room. She goes, let's go get some Chinese food. She really just was jonesing for Chinese food, but the thought of eating it was just abhorrent to her. She goes, I'm so nauseous, I don't want to eat anything. So I love that story. But also it's good for a lot of things like hiccups. One of my favorite stories, I was going back east from San Diego to Boston to see a dear friend of mine who was gravely ill. And about a half hour into the flight, this woman to my right started hiccuping. And I hear her go, oh no. And now this is a 4.5, 5 hour flight. And I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, "I get hiccups and nothing helps them, and they'll last for hours." Now the bubble above my head's going, I don't want to sit next to, no offense to her, I don't want to sit next to somebody hiccuping for 4.5, 5 hours. So I introduced myself, told her what I did as it professionally, and I said, "Do you mind if I try to help you with it by showing the acupressure?" I showed it on myself first. And she goes, no, of course, that would be great. So I pressed the point, did it, and I'll go over that in a moment, how often, how firmly to do it, how long you should do it. I did it for, I don't know, maybe 45 seconds and pressing on it on both wrists, and her hiccups stopped. They never came back the entire flight. So she was extremely happy. And I told her, use the point herself, because apparently she gets that, which is just a diaphragmatic spasm, basically. It's great also, one of my favorite areas and stories also, Laura and I were invited, we used to go to almost every department of Strong Hospital to, they'd ask us to do in-services about a variety of different things. Well, we were in the post-surgical anesthesiology nurses group, invited us. So we talked to them and did a presentation about acupuncture, and then we did this point, acupressure, for post-surgical nausea. So we leave, we go back to our clinic, I don't know, that was like 8 o'clock in the morning, so like 10 o'clock or 10:30, the phone rings. We pick it up, and this woman says she was one of the head nurses at the anesthesiology post-surgical nurse, or the post-surgical department. She said, "We had a patient that had extreme nausea. We applied the point you just taught us, and it stopped their nausea, and I just thought you'd like to know that." I mean, I just love stories like that.
Yeah.
So that's why I said I've taught it to kids. I've taught it to many adults, many pregnant women, as I said. But it has also really, really good. It's probably one of the key points, which is one of the main reasons we're presenting it today. It's one of the main points for anxiety. It's a great point when we've taught the point here for anxiety. We've taught other points for anxiety, but it's really calming to a person who has anxiety, because often they get that angina-like pain, that constriction in their chest, short of just the side of a panic attack. And so this is really good for helping that, calming that down, because it regulates the heart, it opens the chest, and that's really important because the chi of the chest is really important. That's where the heart and the lungs are, and we know, of course, with all the heart and the lung, especially the lung issues. And it's interesting, without going into all the facts about that, we're seeing, when we're reading different things about COVID-19, we're seeing that there's some weird thing with COVID that's affecting the heart. It's not just the lungs. So doing points like this will really help just keep that area strong. And if, when we get anxious, we tend to get tight in this area and in the chest. And what this does is it just helps open that up and expand that. So,
and I think there's actually some good research that shows that this point actually can help out significantly with chest pain and irregular heartbeats. So it is used quite a bit with cardiac patients in China as well as here. So it's
right,
a great one.
And I mean, Cedars-Sinai, Mount Sinai, UCLA, Harvard, they all have, when you go, if you Google this point, Naguan inner gate, it's called inner gate because it's on the inner part of the arm, is that the thing explodes so much. It's probably one of the most researched points in acupuncture, I have to say.
One little tidbit about that, my father is actually a retired gastroenterologist, and he did some research on this point. He also trained in acupuncture later on in his career, and he actually was doing some research on this point to find out the efficacy, as well as just doing a little work with the placebo effect, the idea that, these points are placebo. And he needled this point on a dog, actually. And they found that through the needling, that it actually affects their digestion. And research has shown that it actually can affect the stomach acid levels. So it is a big point for one of my specialties, which is treating acid reflux and GERD. So kind of cool that this research was done here. And the dog was probably really relaxed after.
Yeah, not anxious. Yeah, of course. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, we've talked to her dad about this point a lot. So let's locate it. That's the most important point. So I want to say a couple of things about this. Some text or articles or videos say use 3 fingers, some say 2. I'm going to explain that in a moment. If you use 2, it's the fat part, the lower part of your fingers. If you do 3, it's the upper part. And if you measure them, they're almost the same width. So, and it's on the inner part of the forearm. Now, a couple of other things. I don't want to forget to say this. If you're treating, I've treated infants and toddlers who had, what's the word I'm looking, I can't,
Colic.
Colic. I could not think of the word. Thank you. So treating colic. And so you would, of course, use probably just the width of the top of your index finger or your top of your thumb. You don't want to use the fat part because you'll go up too high. Location's fairly important in this, and as it is in all acupuncture and acupressure points, but you want to be as close as possible to that area.
And you got a little space.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you always have a little bit of
If
space.
you're ever questioning, I mean, you can probably just do the general area
Right.
and get some
Right.
effect from
Right.
it.
So it's great for from kids all the way up through elders. So it's a great point. Now, of course, use pressure accordingly. If you're working on a frail elderly patient, as an example, or just a elderly patient, they don't have to be frail. Don't press as hard as you would maybe on yourself. This is a nice thing. I've taught it to patients who have test anxiety, and I tell them, I said, you can use this during an exam. Just press on that point. Nobody's going to know what you're doing. You're going to have your hands folded in your lap. So this. You don't want to bend your hand when you find this. Hand puppets, yes. So flat. So this is called the terminal wrist crease. So the forearm meets the hand here. Terminal means end. So it's that crease that goes across right where your palm of your hand meets your forearm. Okay, so this is the area we're working on. There's 2 tendons. When you make it, you can see they pop up like that. That's called flexor carpi radialis and palmaris longus. Those are 2, and there's a canal when you do that. When you make a fist, you can see it. But to locate the point, you don't want to have a fist. Now, a couple other things too. The pericardium meridian terminates on the middle finger. So when I say find the middle of the arm, if you're looking at the arm like this, can I use you, Laura?
Sure.
I think so. If you're looking, you want to look. I mean the center. Using the middle finger as your guide, you come right down. Because people said, "Oh, what part of this area?" So using the middle finger across the palm into this area. So you look at, now Laura is, I was 6'1", I'm not any longer, and 5'6", 5'7", right? So our hand sizes are a little different, you can see that. So you have to take that into account. Often I'll have the patient find it on themselves. Now if you use 2 fingers, as I said, you use the fat part of your finger. If you use 3, you use the tips of the fingers, like this, just across the tips. So it's 3 fingers up using the tips, 2 fingers. Let's just stick with 3.
You can also have the person do it.
Yeah.
If you're a lot bigger than they are.
So if there's a size difference, like I've worked on NFL players, and those men are huge. They have big hands. They're just big guys, and so most of them. And so you would use that accordingly. So it's important to know that. This usually is not a fleshy part of the arm. Most people, you can find it pretty easily on them. But the key is, like Laura's palm is open. You don't want it closed. So using her fingers, let's use 3. So we use the top of the 3 fingers here. And have Laura remove her fingers here. So it's right underneath that index finger. And so you want to place it here. Let's get you a little closer, Laura. You can see right here, right? It's right in the middle.
Between the tendons there.
Right between the flexor carpi radialis palmaris longus. Now, thank you. Now, the key to that point is I use my thumb to press on it. You can use your index finger. I just think you get a little more power with your thumb. So what I tend to tell patients to do is I say, take a deep breath and then press down and do little circles. I just do little circles like this on it, just like this. Just little circles are really helpful. And then as you exhale, then inhale and then exhale and do little circles. Now, as we've said many times before, this is on both sides of the body. Bilateral means both sides, so it doesn't matter right or left. And I would switch it up. If you're having issues with nausea or anxiety, or as Laura said, chest pain, angina, things like that, then do it on the left for a little bit, and switch to the right. Same measurement, doesn't matter. They're the same. But I can't say enough of how great it is for anxiety, palpitations, chest pain, angina, just heart issues, period, and also the nausea and the digestive part, the stomach acid, as Laura said, for reflux, for hiccups, for any digestive issue, it helps harmonize the spleen and stomach. So it's a great point. It's easily accessible, easy to do. Don't press too hard and hurt yourself, but it should be a firm pressure. So any questions about any of this, always give us a shout. Give it a shout, give it a try, and see what you think. And it's great for, one thing, a friend of mine just came on, so I will not say his name, but it's good for hangover too. So it's great for that.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on that note, and we will see you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Oh, I forgot to say one last thing.
Oh, that's right.
We launched our Etsy store. I can't forget that. Our son Wyatt has been working so hard on it, and it's been fun to have this project to work on together with him.
Yeah.
So it is Balance Life Shop. Balance Life, like this, what we're calling our membership. And Balance Life Shop. So check it out on Etsy. We have some of the herbal formulas we've been talking about. The immune soup blend, the herbal blend is on there from yesterday. So
it's exciting.
Yeah. Something new.
And it's great involving our children with it too. They're really enjoying it as well, which is awesome.
Yay.
So
yeah.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Have a great day.
Bye.